A traitor who doomed a nation. This is the story of a man whose actions sealed the fate of an empire, whose betrayal led to the fall of one of history's most iconic battles. The Battle of Thermopylae, one of the most celebrated stories of resistance in history, was betrayed by one man. But who was he? And why did he choose to betray his own people, opening the path for the enemy to conquer everything in their wake? We all know the heroic tale of King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans standing against the massive Persian army. But there's a twist to this story, one that most people are unaware of. While the Spartan warriors fought valiantly to protect their land, a traitor who knew the land better than anyone sold them out. A man named Ephialtes. Today, we'll uncover the shocking truth behind the betrayal at Thermopylae. If you want to dive deeper into the untold stories of history, be sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more amazing content like this. The story of Thermopylae begins long before the fateful day of battle. To understand the magnitude of the betrayal, we must first understand the importance of the battle itself. In 480 BC, the Persian Empire under King Xerxes was at the height of its power. It was an unstoppable force, sweeping across the known world, conquering city-states and spreading its rule. Persia was a mighty empire with one goal: domination. Greece, a collection of independent city-states, stood as the last major power resisting Persian conquest. While the Greek city-states were often divided, the Persian threat brought them together, even if temporarily. The Greek world was a place of fierce competition and occasional infighting. But when faced with the enormity of the Persian Empire, the Greeks knew they had no choice but to stand united. For the Greeks, it wasn't just about territory, it was about their very way of life. They valued their freedom, their culture, and their democratic ideals, and they knew that if Persia succeeded, these would be lost forever. But even as they united, their chances of victory against such a massive force seemed impossible. Thermopylae, meaning hot gates, was a narrow pass between the mountains and the sea. It was the ideal location for a small but strategically positioned force to hold off a much larger army. And that's exactly what the Greeks, led by King Leonidas of Sparta, hoped to do. The narrow terrain of Thermopylae would neutralize the Persians' numerical advantage. It was the perfect place to make a stand. On one side, the Persian army, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, prepared to march toward the heart of Greece. On the other side, a coalition of Greek soldiers, including 300 Spartans, stood ready to fight. Though they were vastly outnumbered, they believed they could hold the line long enough for reinforcements to arrive. This was to be the final stand. The Greeks had no illusions of easy victory. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew that without holding Thermopylae, all of Greece would be open to the Persian invasion. But what they didn't know was that the battle would not only be lost because of overwhelming numbers. There was something, or rather someone else, who would tip the scales in favor of the Persians. Ephialtes was a man who lived in the region near Thermopylae. His motivations have been debated for centuries, but one thing is certain: he played a pivotal role in the fall of Greece. According to most accounts, Ephialtes was a local Greek who approached the Persian forces with a proposal. He revealed to them a secret path that would allow them to bypass the narrow pass where the Greek forces were stationed, essentially rendering their position useless. This pass was not well known to outsiders, but Ephialtes, being from the area, knew it intimately. By opening this route to the Persians, he gave them a way to flank the Greek forces and surround them. In exchange for his betrayal, Ephialtes was promised a reward by the Persians. However, the true nature of this reward remains unclear in many historical sources. Some say it was money, others suggest it was land or power. Regardless, the effect was the same. The Greeks were now doomed. The moment Ephialtes guided the Persians through the secret path, it was clear that the battle was lost. The Greek forces, who had held their ground bravely against overwhelming odds, were now being attacked from behind. The surprise attack caught the Greeks off guard, forcing them to retreat. King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, along with a small group of other Greek warriors, chose to stay behind and fight to the death. They knew the battle was lost, but they refused to surrender. In a final act of defiance, they fought heroically, knowing that their sacrifice would inspire the Greek forces in the future. As for Ephialtes, his name became synonymous with betrayal. History would remember him not just as the man who opened the pass to the Persians, but as a symbol of dishonor and treachery. If you're fascinated by how betrayal shaped the course of history, be sure to subscribe. In our next section, we'll dive deeper into the life of Ephialtes and explore why he chose to betray his people, and how his actions still echo through history today. To truly understand the gravity of the betrayal at Thermopylae, we need to delve into the story of Ephialtes himself. Who was this man, and what drove him to commit an act that would forever tarnish his name in history? Ephialtes was not a nobleman or a soldier of high rank. He was a local Greek from the region of Trachis, an area near the pass of Thermopylae. Unlike many of the soldiers who fought at the pass, Ephialtes wasn't part of the elite warrior classes of Greece. He wasn't a Spartan, nor did he belong to any of the other renowned city-states that had sent their soldiers to defend Greece. His role in the events leading up to the battle was not that of a hero, but of someone with knowledge that could prove crucial to the enemy. Some sources suggest that Ephialtes was physically deformed, possibly having a hunchback or some other disfigurement that may have made him feel alienated from society. His appearance could have led to feelings of rejection or bitterness, motivating him to betray his own people. However, other accounts tell us that his motivations were far more complex, driven by greed or a desire for power. So, why would Ephialtes, a Greek, choose to betray his own people? The answer lies in the promises made to him by the Persian Empire. The Persians, led by King Xerxes, were known for offering rewards to those who cooperated with their conquest. In the case of Ephialtes, he was promised wealth, land, and power if he helped the Persians. But what truly pushed him to make this choice? Was it just the lure of riches, or something deeper? In many ways, Ephialtes might have seen his actions as a pragmatic response to his situation. Living in a remote area, he likely saw little benefit in continuing to support the Greek cause. The Persians, on the other hand, were a rising power that seemed destined for victory, and cooperating with them might have seemed like the safer, more lucrative choice. It's also possible that Ephialtes underestimated the loyalty and resolve of the Greek forces. Perhaps he believed that the Greeks would be defeated regardless of his betrayal, and thus saw no harm in taking advantage of the situation for his own gain. The moment of betrayal came when Ephialtes approached the Persian forces, offering them the secret path that would allow them to outflank the Greeks. This was no small matter. It wasn't just a minor tactical advantage, it was the key to turning the tide of the battle. Ephialtes guided the Persian army through the hidden mountain path, a route that circumvented the narrow pass and placed the Persian forces directly behind the Greek position. The Greeks, who had been holding the line bravely, were now at a severe disadvantage. The Persian forces could surround them from both sides, and the outcome of the battle was no longer in doubt. The betrayal struck at the heart of the Greek defense. The soldiers who had stood firm, believing that their position at Thermopylae would be impenetrable, were now caught in a trap. The only option left was to retreat or face complete annihilation. What did Ephialtes gain in return for his betrayal? According to historical accounts, he was promised a generous reward by the Persian king. Some say he was offered gold, others that he was promised land and a place of honor in the Persian Empire. Yet there is some ambiguity about what exactly was promised to him. However, in the end, Ephialtes' reward would not come to fruition as he had hoped. Though he helped the Persians win the battle, his name would forever be associated with dishonor and treachery. The reward he received from the Persians was likely not as glorious as he expected, and his fate would take a tragic turn. The moment Ephialtes guided the Persians through the secret path, the Greek defense at Thermopylae was broken. King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, along with a small group of other Greek warriors, made a final stand against the Persians, refusing to surrender. They knew the battle was lost, but they also knew that their sacrifice would inspire future generations. The last stand of the Spartans at Thermopylae is one of the most heroic and legendary episodes in history. Despite being surrounded and vastly outnumbered, They fought with unmatched bravery. But in the end, they were overwhelmed, and their deaths were a heavy blow to Greece. The Greek forces that had initially held the pass were now scattered, and the Persian army moved swiftly through Greece, leaving destruction in their wake. However, their victory would prove to be short-lived. If you're fascinated by the twists of fate that shape history, make sure to subscribe for more insights into the stories that changed the world. In the next part, we'll explore how the betrayal at Thermopylae affected the Greek world and led to one of the most surprising turns in history. In the aftermath of the betrayal, the Greek forces at Thermopylae were doomed. The Persians, now knowing the layout of the land and having surrounded the Greeks, could easily crush any remaining resistance. King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans, along with their fellow warriors, fought bravely to the death, buying time for other Greek forces to regroup and retreat. But Thermopylae was not the end of the war. It was a battle that would resonate for years to come. The sacrifice of the Spartans became a symbol of resistance and courage, inspiring future generations of Greeks to continue fighting. Although the Persians had won at Thermopylae, their victory was hollow. The Greeks, united by the loss and driven by a sense of vengeance and honor, rallied their forces in other battles. One such battle was the Battle of Salamis, where the Greek navy achieved a decisive victory. Soon after, the Persian army was defeated at Plataea, and the threat of Persian domination over Greece was over. Despite the immediate setback, the betrayal at Thermopylae served as a rallying cry for the Greek city-states. The sacrifice at Thermopylae, coupled with the betrayal, fueled Greek resolve. Instead of leading to Greece's downfall, the betrayal united them in a final push to defeat the Persians. The aftermath of the battle also marked a turning point in the Greek mindset. The idea of unity among the city-states, long a difficult concept, began to take hold. The Greeks realized that they had to put aside their differences and work together to preserve their way of life. The aftermath of Thermopylae would also influence how future generations viewed leadership, loyalty, and betrayal. The lessons of the battle and Ephialtes' betrayal would echo through the centuries, shaping not only Greek thought, but the way the Western world would view heroes and traitors alike. This betrayal didn't just change the fate of Greece, it had an impact on the entire world. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue to explore how history's greatest betrayals shaped the world we know today. Ephialtes has become a symbol of treachery in Western history. His name is so closely tied to betrayal that it has transcended the events of Thermopylae to become a shorthand for dishonor. But how much of the story we know is based on myth, and how much is grounded in truth? In the centuries following the events of Thermopylae, Ephialtes became more than just a historical figure. He became a symbol of betrayal itself. His name is often invoked in literature, art, and pop culture as the epitome of disloyalty. But how accurate is this portrayal? The earliest historical records, like those from Herodotus, paint Ephialtes as a man who chose personal gain over loyalty, guiding the Persians through a secret path to outflank the Greeks. This act of treason, however, is simple in its narrative. What is missing from many accounts is any deeper exploration of Ephialtes' reasons or the circumstances that led him to make such a fateful choice. Over the years, Ephialtes has been painted as a figure driven solely by greed, a traitor without any redeeming qualities. But the reality may have been more complicated. Some modern historians suggest that Ephialtes might have been a man deeply motivated by fear or personal insecurity. His deformity, often cited in ancient texts, could have caused him to feel alienated from the society he was meant to defend. In this light, his betrayal becomes more than just a simple act of greed. It could be seen as a desperate attempt to survive in a world where he felt powerless. Greek mythology, with its complex pantheon of gods and heroes, has long shaped the way we view historical events. As a result, many of the stories surrounding the betrayal at Thermopylae, including the character of Ephialtes, have been colored by mythological tropes. In the mythic sense, Ephialtes fits the archetype of the flawed, tragic figure who is both villain and victim. The Greeks loved to tell stories of tragic heroes who made choices that led to their downfall, and Ephialtes was no exception. His betrayal could easily be portrayed as the work of a man who was fated to fail, a tragic anti-hero who could not escape his destiny. But while the ancient myths often show us the extremes of human nature, they also complicate our understanding of historical events. When we look at Ephialtes through the lens of mythology, we see more than just a traitor. We see a man caught in a web of fate, struggling with personal demons that may have driven him to his treacherous actions. As the centuries passed, the story of Ephialtes was retold countless times, each time adding layers of myth and legend. The Persians, often depicted as the other, became a backdrop for the drama of Greek virtue versus Persian vice. The betrayal at Thermopylae was not just a military defeat. It was framed as a cosmic struggle between honor and dishonor. In the ancient world, the Greeks were particularly invested in the idea of arete, a concept of excellence that defined their heroes and leaders. Betrayal was anathema to this ideal, and Ephialtes became the embodiment of dishonor. The myth of Ephialtes grew as a cautionary tale against the dangers of betraying one's own people for personal gain. But while Ephialtes became the quintessential traitor in the Greek world, the reality is that his actions were likely more complex than we often assume. Some historical accounts suggest that he may have felt betrayed by the Greek city-states themselves, who failed to give him a sense of belonging. In this light, his betrayal could be seen not as an act of simple greed, but as a twisted attempt to carve out a place for himself in a world that had rejected him. The legacy of Ephialtes has lived on far beyond the ancient world. His name and his betrayal have been immortalized in countless works of art, literature, and film. One of the most notable representations of Ephialtes comes from the 2006 film 300, directed by Zack Snyder. In 300, Ephialtes is portrayed as a grotesque and bitter character, driven by a desire for acceptance and revenge. His betrayal is shown as the final act that turns the tide of the battle, and his physical deformity is exaggerated to emphasize his monstrous nature. While this portrayal is dramatic and fictionalized, it taps into the mythic legacy of Ephialtes as the ultimate symbol of betrayal. The portrayal of Ephialtes in 300 has had a lasting effect on how the public perceives him. For many, this movie has cemented his image as a despicable character, a representation of the very worst aspects of human nature. His name has become synonymous with treason, and his legacy as a traitor has been firmly entrenched in popular culture. Beyond film and entertainment, the figure of Ephialtes has also been used in more serious cultural and political contexts. His story has served as a reminder of the dangers of betrayal and the fragility of loyalty. In times of political turmoil or national crisis, the figure of the traitor is often invoked to symbolize the moral decay of a society. In this sense, Ephialtes has become a symbol not just of individual treachery, but of larger social and political breakdowns. Ephialtes' betrayal also raises important ethical questions about loyalty, duty, and honor, questions that are still relevant today. In the modern world, we often face situations where our personal interests clash with our loyalty to our communities or nations. Ephialtes' actions invite us to ask ourselves, how far can personal ambition go before it undermines the collective good? What are the consequences of betrayal in a world where loyalty is prized above all else? Though the Persians won the battle at Thermopylae, their victory came at a great cost. The story of the betrayal at Thermopylae, with its complex mix of personal ambition, national loyalty, and tragic heroism, serves as an eternal reminder of the high stakes of war and the consequences of betrayal. In the end, Thermopylae was not just about a single battle or a single betrayal. It was about the resilience of the human spirit and the price of honor. The Greeks ultimately triumphed over the Persians, but the memory of Ephialtes' betrayal lingered long after the last Persian soldier had left Greek soil. And so, the story of Thermopylae endures, not just as a military struggle, but as a cultural touchstone for understanding the cost of treachery and the value of loyalty. If you found this story as captivating as we do, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more deep dives into history's most fascinating betrayals and the heroes who defined our world. Despite his betrayal, Ephialtes is, in many ways, a tragic figure. His actions, though devastating in the short term, were a catalyst for the heroism that followed. The Persian victory at Thermopylae wasn't the end of the Greek resistance. Instead, it served as a rallying point that united the Greek city-states in a final push against the invaders. The fall of Thermopylae led directly to the naval battle at Salamis, where the Greek fleet dealt a decisive blow to the Persians. Following that, the final victory came at Plataea, where the Greek forces, united in their resolve, crushed the Persian army once and for all. The ultimate defeat of the Persian Empire, in part thanks to the sacrifices made at Thermopylae, would go on to shape the future of Europe for centuries. The legacy of Leonidas and his 300 Spartans is one of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. But the betrayal at Thermopylae, though it may have doomed the Greeks in that moment, ultimately led to their unity and ultimate victory. It was a paradox. Ephialtes' treachery became the driving force behind Greece's eventual triumph. The aftermath of Thermopylae was not just about military tactics or alliances. It was about the human spirit, the resilience, the courage, and the deep sense of honor that Greeks embodied. Even in the face of betrayal, they showed the world that true greatness lies in rising above the darkest moments of human weakness. Ephialtes' betrayal serves as a powerful lesson in morality. His story is one that forces us to reflect on loyalty, honor, and the consequences of personal ambition. It begs the question, how far can one man's actions impact an entire civilization? Ephialtes thought he could secure his future by aligning with the winning side. But what he did not realize was that his betrayal would cost him not only his honor, but his place in history. His actions remind us that choices made in moments of desperation or greed can have far-reaching consequences. While betrayal may bring temporary gain, it often leads to a life of disgrace, and in Ephialtes' case, a name forever etched in history as a symbol of treachery. The legacy of Ephialtes is also a reminder that history often judges actions through the lens of morality. His betrayal was not just a tactical misstep, it was a moral failure, and history has treated it as such. To this day, when we speak of betrayal, we invoke his name, not as a hero, but as the ultimate cautionary tale. But what if Ephialtes had chosen differently? What if he had remained loyal to the Greek cause, standing with his fellow Greeks at Thermopylae? Would the outcome of the battle have changed? Would the Greeks have been able to hold the pass, forcing Xerxes to turn back? We will never know for sure. History is full of quote zero, and the story of Thermopylae is one of the most poignant examples of how a single act of betrayal can alter the course of history. Had Ephialtes not revealed the secret path to the Persians, the Greek defense at Thermopylae might have lasted longer. More Greek reinforcements might have arrived, or perhaps the Persians would have been forced to retreat. The ramifications are impossible to predict. But what is clear is that Ephialtes' decision to betray his own people forever changed the outcome of the Greco-Persian wars. After the battle, Ephialtes' story took a tragic turn. He was not rewarded as he had expected by the Persians. Instead of the glory and riches he had hoped for, he was eventually hunted down by the Greeks. Some accounts claim that he was assassinated, while others suggest he was driven into exile, living out the rest of his life in shame. The final fate of Ephialtes serves as a grim reminder that, in the end, betrayal offers no lasting rewards. He may have thought he was securing a future for himself, but his actions led only to a life of dishonor and isolation. His name, once associated with potential reward, is now synonymous with the deepest form of treachery. If you found this deep dive into one of history's most fascinating betrayals compelling, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Stay with us as we continue to explore the untold stories and hidden truths that have shaped the course of history. The story of Ephialtes and the betrayal at Thermopylae teaches us a timeless lesson about the human cost of treachery. His actions, while small in comparison to the grand sweep of history, had consequences that rippled out and shaped the fate of civilizations. Betrayal may bring immediate gain, but it almost always leads to long-term ruin, both for the betrayer and those betrayed. Thermopylae remains a defining moment in history, not just because of the bravery of the Greeks, but because of the moral complexities it brings to the forefront. The actions of a single man, motivated by personal ambition, forever altered the course of events, highlighting the fragile balance between loyalty, honor, and the consequences of our choices. Though Ephialtes' name will always be remembered as one of the greatest traitors in history, his story is also a reminder that no one is beyond redemption if they choose to act with integrity. In the end, the Greeks won the war, and the betrayal at Thermopylae became part of the greater narrative of resistance and unity. But the cost of that victory was a deep moral lesson. Betrayal has a price that lasts far beyond the battlefield. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this journey through one of history's most iconic betrayals, make sure to like and subscribe. Don't miss our future deep dives into the people, events, and decisions that have shaped the world we live in today. Until next time, remember, history is written not just by the victors, but by the choices we make, the betrayals we face, and the legacies we leave behind.